I attended the University of Louisville, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally. And I grew up with an affinity for Louisville from basically birth until I moved out of town. I attended virtually every basketball and football game that they had. So I knew I was going to go to school there before I really even knew what that meant. I guess the first question I had was, what am I going to major in? I'd always loved sports, played basketball since I was 5 years old. Found out pretty quickly I certainly didn't have the ability to play for Louisville, let alone D2, D3, or anything like that. So that dream kind of ended in high school. But I got on campus, decided to major in sport administration. I was also a marketing minor, so probably similar to a lot of people on the call. And again, didn't really know exactly what that meant. It just sounded good and kind of rolled with it. And I ended up falling in love with it, taking all my classes. Freshman year, I was able to get a fan experience internship with the women's basketball team, which was basically a fancy way of saying I rolled through T-shirts and gave out handouts at the game and things like that. One thing that was especially cool about that, though, was their very first season in the KFC Yum Center, which is a beautiful 22,000 seat downtown arena. So having grown up a fan, being able to get the behind the scenes look at everything that went into that was pretty cool. My next year as a sophomore, I had a community engagement and PR internship with the men's soccer team. That was really cool because they were just coming off a national championship game appearance. They ended up losing to Akron, but soccer was really starting to get popular in the town. And with the pro teams in town now, that's only continued really ever since then. So the main thing that they really hammered home to me early on was get as much experience as you possibly can. And I really took that to heart. And I think that's why I was able to get a job after graduation, is because the whole time through, I didn't start as a senior. It was freshman, sophomore, junior year. I had an internship. So with that, my senior year, I spent the whole year in the ticket office interning in there. That was selling football and women's basketball season tickets. It was football seat relocations. It was selling tickets to the Sugar Bowl, things like that. So really fun experience that year that kind of triggered me to my next job. I will say I didn't necessarily have a traditional college experience, I would say, outside of everything I mentioned. I worked nights at UPS through a program that they had there that basically paid for your school. The catch being you worked nights and missed out on, a lot of Friday nights and things that normal college is about. I also got married between my junior and senior year, which is kind of untraditional. So some different experiences, but I wouldn't have changed a thing. Also, my senior year was a year in which they won the men's basketball national championship. The women's basketball team was national runner-up. Football won the Sugar Bowl, and baseball went to the College World Series. So to kind of end my time there with that experience, not a lot of people can have all of those experiences at once. So that was pretty special. So my experience in the ticket office did help me land my very first job, which was at the University of South Florida. I worked for a company called Learfield IMG College Ticket Solutions. So basically what that job looked like, we were in the basement of the basketball stadium, and we made 80 calls a day and tried to set 5 face-to-face meetings every week. And that was the job. So it was truly entry-level, grinded out type of job. One challenge with that is that I found out pretty quickly that isn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life by any means. So that made it challenging. Also, football is kind of king down there. And they had I think 2-10 season. So trying to sell that was also a challenge. So I say it's a challenge, but it was also good in the sense that I learned a lot that first year, kind of diving right in it. So that was the positive of it. I met some really great people, had to overcome a lot of challenges, and truly did learn a lot. Even just the skill of being able to pick up the phone and feel comfortable talking to someone, or just going face-to-face meetings and be able to present yourself in a professional manner. Those were type of things that were great to learn right out of college. So I did that for about 13 months. Again, I knew that not exactly what I wanted to do. And also I was 14 hours away from home for the first time. So we were looking to get a little bit closer to home. Like I mentioned, I did get married in college, and we were looking to start a family. So didn't want to do that so far away from home. So I actually did go to Evansville right after USF. So I've been there about 7 years now, which is hard to believe. I've held about 4 different titles in those 7 years. So I went in July of 2014 as the director of ticketing services and athletic event operations. They intentionally put that wide sweeping title on there because basically I did a little bit of everything. It was tough when I first got there. There was kind of a transition period. The AD had retired right before I got there. The head marketing person had left between my interview and me arriving on campus. So they really were trying to fill a lot of positions, and it's already an extremely small staff to begin with. So my boss was named the interim AD, and I basically never saw him because he had so many things going on. So I got there at, 23 years old, was the head of the ticket office and had no help whatsoever, which again, sounds tough, sounds like a challenge, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. It really helped me get my feet underneath me and learn a whole lot. There was a lot of mistakes that were made in those first year or two as well. But again, wouldn't have changed anything. And just how far we've grown from when I first got there to now is kind of incredible. So did that for a couple years. We won the 2015 CIT tournament on the men's basketball side, which I only mentioned because it was a ton of work, because it's basically a tournament without a bracket. You don't know who you're going to play or when you're going to play. And we had to basically sell tickets overnight and work a lot of long days. So that was kind of the highlight of that time. After about 2 years, I was promoted to assistant AD for ticket operations. I wouldn't say that I lost any responsibilities. I just gained more. I added sports supervision to my responsibilities. I started to oversee the men's and women's golf team. I was able to go to grad school for free there at UE and get my master's. So one thing I'll say about Evansville is that I've really had a chance to grow and learn and continuously do that. And that's one of the things I really value about my time there. So after that, I was, again, kind of transitioned to assistant AD for marketing and fan engagement. We had let our marketing person go. And to be honest, I was already doing a lot of his job anyway. So it was kind of natural transition over into marketing. And I mentioned earlier, I was a marketing minor. That's what I actually wanted to do this entire time. So I was super grateful to have the opportunity to switch over. Again, it was kind of a period of transition. We had just signed with Learfield IMG College for the first time and had a third party multimedia rights partner. We did a complete university rebrand with logos and things like that. We hired a new men's basketball coach who was kind of a local legend, which ultimately didn't end up panning out. If you've seen the news on any of that, I won't get into that, but that was a failed experiment. I'll leave at that. Then I also started to oversee the Spirit Squad and was kind of the liaison with our pep band. So again, just constantly adding responsibility, adding new responsibilities, things like that. And so last fall was promoted again to associate AD for external affairs, which basically means I, again, have a lot of the same responsibilities that I already have, but just added more, overseeing marketing, ticketing, social media, video and ESPN, communications and media relations, things like that. The entire time I've had that position has been during the pandemic. So I'll be interested to see how things change moving forward. I also oversee the baseball and men's soccer programs now, in addition to golf. So you can see a theme, just a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity. And that's why I've been so thankful for my time at Evansville. I guess a couple words of advice before I'll open it up to questions and things like that. Don't underestimate the power of networking. Cameron, definitely shout out to you for doing this at all. Would have loved to have these type of opportunities when I was their age. But just make sure you don't just take advantage of your network, actively look to grow it. I think people in this industry especially are willing to go out of their way to help out. Like when Cameron asked me to do this, I didn't think twice. I was definitely going to do it. And I think just about anyone else he would ask would say the same thing. So I'm happy to help personally, but just make sure you expand your network, get out of your comfort zone, things like that. I think as you'll start looking for a job here soon, and none of this is original to me by any means, but it's stuff I've taken to heart. talented people there, but it may not always be the right fit. So don't be afraid to work at a place like Evansville or Georgia Southern or places that may not be Power Fives. Give those small schools a chance. And then finally, I would say, don't look too far ahead in your career. Kind of work where you're at, and help make the big time where you are. That's something I've really taken to heart at Evansville is, it's not IU or Purdue or anything like that. But instead of just leaving and doing that, why not make where I'm at comparable? So those are just some words of advice, and kind of my path up to this point. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I got a question. What was the hardest part of getting to where you at right now? Like your most challenging part to get there?
I think that may change by who you ask. I think for me, it's been the amount of work and hours and dedication that it takes to get to this point. There's also sacrifices you have to make. I'm married with a 5-year-old, but also work, 60 to 80 hours a week, depending on what's going on. And so that means I'm not home a lot. That means I miss, family occasions and things like that. So that's just something you have to think about. Are you willing to make those sacrifices? And that's really hard sometimes, but that's what I would say has been the hardest part for me.
Appreciate it.
What was your biggest obstacle?
Just in general, up to this point?
Yes.
Yeah, since I've spent the bulk of my career at Evansville, I would say I'll speak to that. I think it's just the resources or maybe lack of resources that we have when you have big ideas and you see schools doing certain things, but you can't do it necessarily just because of the resources or whatever it may be. So we do take a lot of pride in being able to adapt and take full advantage of what we do have. It's just, I think the lack of resources to do everything we want to do has been one of the hardest things to overcome at Evansville.
Hey, Scott, what is one skill set that you brought from your time as an intern or at an entry-level position that you're able to bring over to where you are now?
I think especially from the intern and early days is just work ethic. When we hire somebody, especially in an entry-level position, we're not as concerned about the exact experience you have or your GPA or anything like that. It's how can you show us that you have a hard work ethic. And that's something that I've always been taught and brought up with, and I think that can carry over and overcome a lot of shortfalls. I don't think I'm the most talented or the smartest or anything like that, but I will work as hard as anyone else in the room, and I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I got a question. If you could go back to being a college student, what would one thing you do differently that might set you up for a little bit more success as a professional?
Yeah, I think on the professional side of things, it would have been getting out of my shell a little bit and networking more. I think I realized a little too late that, I had a lot of one-off miscellaneous type of volunteer experiences, like, the D2 national championship game where I'm, handing out t-shirts or whatever it may be. I did a lot of those, but it's not just about going and doing the job you put in place. It's more about, how can I get to know the people that hired me to do the job, and what can I do to keep in contact with those people beyond that? I don't think that's something I did very well. I I still am really, but I've always been kind of a shy, quiet person. So, I kind of just put my head down and do the job when I think I'd lost a lot of networking opportunities by doing that.
Do you have any tips or tricks on expanding your network or any platforms that work really well for that, especially maybe out of college or just in general, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I think for whatever reason, this industry in particular is super active on Twitter, and that's where I'm most active personally. So it's certainly not out of the norm to send someone a DM out of the blue, just asking to pick their brain or set up a informational interview or wherever it may be. So for me, it's probably Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm pretty active too, which obviously LinkedIn is a little more broadly acceptable to do those type of things in a professional setting. So yeah, that's what I would say. In terms of a tip, I would say don't be afraid to reach out to anyone. Like I said earlier, 9 times out of 10, if not more, people in this industry want to help you and are willing to do so. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone who's completely a stranger, but maybe has a job that you'd like to have one day or work somewhere that you'd like to work. Because worst thing that could happen is they don't respond, and that's fine too. Anybody else?
Scott, I haven't heard anyone bring it up yet, but your opportunity to work with the Power 5 Mentality podcast. Can you talk a little bit more about the work that goes into it, how you're trying to build that brand, and your hopes, expectations for it in the future?
Well, thank you for bringing that up so I could talk about it. So yeah, basically myself and Emily McMillan, one of my coworkers at UE, got bored in, I think, April of last year when we were working from home and decided to start a podcast. It's called Power 5 Mentality. And basically we interview industry leaders at non-Power 5 schools about marketing and creative and other athletic sports business type things. And we have new episodes that come out every 2 weeks. And we have a blog that's written every 2 weeks as well. So there's always something new that comes out every week. And I'm proud to say that we're still going strong. It got a little dicey, I'll admit, when kind of crossover season hit and everybody was playing at the same time, and it's hard to make that a priority. But we still haven't missed an episode, and we're still going strong 1 year in now. So I will put that in the chat. So we're on Twitter and Instagram, more so Twitter than anything. And the episodes are on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever else you would find podcasts. And it's been a lot of fun. I don't think we had a goal going into it, and I don't think necessarily we have any kind of goal now, which maybe isn't good, but our goal is just to keep doing it, number one, and just growing a little bit at a time. I'll say selfishly, the biggest benefit for me has been the networking side of it, because if we've had like 26 episodes, I think, and I would say at least 20 of those people I had never met before previously, but now I feel like I could call and bounce ideas off of, or maybe down the road for a job, things like that. So selfishly, the biggest thing has been the networking for myself. If we can get 100 people to listen to an episode, that's good for us too, and has been fun. So I'll admit Emily does more of the work than I do. I reach out to all the guests and kind of come up with the content for the show, and she does all the editing and social media and graphics and things like that. So definitely check it out. The episode that came out today with Tyler Jones from Cleveland State is ironically my favorite episode. So if you just want to try one, do the one that came out today with Tyler.